We're back with Seattle Real Estate Radio with your hosts, Christian Nossum and Dan Keller.
All right, hey, so welcome back to another episode of Seattle Real Estate Radio on KQL 1300. My name is Dan Keller.
And I am Christian Nossum.
Here with my boy, Christian Nossum. Hey, we've got another pro.
Yes.
On the show today.
And he's my pro.
He's your pro.
My man.
You can vouch for him.
Yes.
We didn't have to check references.
No, I am a reference.
You are a reference. Yeah, 30 years.
Yeah.
What'd you say?
31.
31
years in the business. He kind of knows his stuff.
Knows his stuff. Tell us about your painter.
Yeah, so Mike Faast Painting. He is a Redmond native, Issaquah, Redmond, Washington State native. Like I said, been in the business forever, 31 years. Almost as long as I've been alive, which is kind of crazy.
Youngster.
But he does his stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
he's great. I've referred him to numerous of our mutual clients. I don't know if you know that or not, but a lot of them, he's done their homes after closing. He's painted my whole house on the interior, at least, not the exterior yet, but didn't need it.
Yeah.
So he's good. So Mike, welcome. Thank you very much for coming on. I appreciate your time.
All right, thank you.
So why don't you get a little closer to the mic there, and then we can. So one question I wanted to ask, and this is a question I get a lot of time, is when is kind of the best time of year to paint the exterior of your home?
Well, here in the Northwest, you have a very short window of time to paint exteriors. So we start painting about April when the temperature achieves 50 degrees and doesn't go too much below 40. Most of the paints, modern paints, are good down to 32 degrees.
Oh, wow.
But that doesn't mean you really want to apply them there. That means they don't fail.
Just because it doesn't mean you should.
So you want it to be 58 degrees, and really in the afternoon it's ideal. You want 60, 65 degrees. So that doesn't really happen here in the Northwest till April, sometimes as late as May. So you can paint, our window of painting is usually April to... I hate to paint past Halloween, so it starts getting the temperatures sometimes drop down into the teens, and I don't like that. The paint doesn't cure, and on the gutters it tends to
it's just going to drip.
fall off. And so our window of time really is very short. It's April through October. That's ideal, and any time in that window is fine, because your temperatures are going to be between 50 and 70 degrees.
That's good enough.
Heat too. If it's too hot, you got to be cautious of that as well.
That's exactly right, because the latex paint dries very fast, and it can skin over and not allow it to properly cure out. So if it's really hot, you're putting that latex paint on there, and especially if it's in the hot sun, it'll skin up and it won't allow that paint to cure properly. So you got to be careful. It's so if it's really hot, you want to get the crew out there early in the day to start painting.
For both their sake and the paint's sake.
Yeah, exactly. But having said that, we're in Washington, so sometimes if it's sunny, we're painting.
Yeah, exactly. So as a homeowner, is there anything? So I always try and hook you and your crew up with water and anything else you guys might need. What is just something that you really appreciate as someone that's out there doing work on a house? What's something that I can do?
Everybody loves a pat on the head. You know, to say you're doing a good job means a lot to the crew and the painters. Often, we kind of come self-contained.
Yeah.
So I pull up with a big truck. It's got a bathroom in it. It's got water. We got a refrigerator, a microwave. But for the homeowner to offer water is always nice. But the biggest thing is just a smile and, recognize a job well done. Yeah. That's huge to a paint crew.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully I did that enough for you guys.
Oh, yeah, you did. You did great.
Sure, you say that now. It's been 6 months.
You're easy to work for.
So, one other thing is that I always get people, especially this time of year, or in January, middle of January almost, people always ask me when the winter comes, hey, you got any gutter guys or roof guys? Because this is when people start to think about that stuff now that the leaves have all fallen and filled up their gutters. Yeah. Is that something that you guys do as well?
Yeah, I like businesses that dovetail, the services that dovetail well and make sense. And we have all the ladders and the expertise to be on roofs and around buildings. And in the winter, when in November comes along and we're starting to get slow, we just roll right over into gutter cleaning and little roof cleaning. We hang Christmas tree lights, things like that. Things that are you can do with ladders. We do some window washing. So it kind of gets us through the winter. And then, of course, we do interior painting. But if it's slow, I have some regular clients I've had for 30 years, as long as I've been in business, and I'm still doing. I've watched their kids grow up.
Wow.
And still doing their windows and their gutter cleaning. It's a nice dovetail for a painting company, and a lot of painting companies do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, that's something that I wasn't quite aware of, that so many people did that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's good to know. So I actually, thanks to you, you had a nice list of questions that you provided me that people often ask you, and one of them is one of the most important questions, and that is, is your painter licensed and bonded?
That is so important because, for number one, if he's licensed and bonded, he's probably paying his taxes, and he's contributing to the society and to the system that we have here that supports our roads and our schools and firemen and all the other things that go along with society. So if he's not licensed in insurance, chances are he's not doing that, and that breaks down the system in general. But secondly, it's a level of commitment and credibility that a man is taking the time to go and get licensed. Nowadays, you kind of need a website. So to me, the most important thing a homeowner can ask a painter is, are you licensed, insured, bonded? Because that protects them. I can tell you some horror stories, which we won't go into because we don't have time, but people who've hired a friend or a relative, and all of a sudden that person gets hurt on their job.
Well, think
and
about
they're
it.
liable.
They're 20 feet up on the ladder.
Yep. Or even just lifting something. We had an issue one time where a friend of mine hired one of his employees from another business to work on his home. So it wasn't at the business. He was at his home now. And he actually ended up getting sued because the kid hurt his back or something. So it's important to be licensed and insured, and it's also important to make sure that your workers are citizens. They're paying their taxes because they're vested. I often try to hire young men from the neighborhood. I mean, I oftentimes know their parents. I love to hire sons of my clients. I know where they live. They're vested. Their parents are going to be mad if they don't do a good job.
Exactly.
And they oftentimes stay with me for years on end too. So that's
I've
important.
met numerous people on your crew, and I can tell you that they're genuinely good people, and they work their butts off. So you're doing something
You're not
right.
Get it done without working hard.
It's true, but you're doing something right as a boss to keep them motivated and want to do a good job.
Thank you.
And that's saying something.
Well, I'm sitting over chuckling, but they're citizens and they're tax-paying citizens. I mean, it's huge to find, so many other people take the shortcuts.
That's a hot topic nowadays, of course.
Under the table, and it's people like us that do things right, that pay a crud ton of taxes, that actually respect that. So. We talk about this a lot, man. It's not necessarily always about quote unquote getting a deal.
Yep.
Everybody wants a deal. We get that.
Yeah.
But
there's more to a deal than just the price.
Well, there's more to getting your house painted and done right than just a deal. And I'm sure you'll talk about that a little bit more.
So I remember when you were doing our house this last summer, you had showed me some photos of a house across the street that was getting painted at the same time.
Right.
And not just the quality of work, but the color choice that they made.
And the roses.
The
roses
exactly.
had plastic on them for 3 days.
Yeah, in the summer, in the middle of
some
summer.
new roses.
Exactly. Wow. Yeah, those roses are no longer with us.
They got baked, huh?
Yeah, they just got baked.
Wow.
But yeah, that's the thing. I mean, when you hire a professional, it's more than just getting the best price. Yep. It's everything that goes along with it, and it's peace of mind as well. I mean, that's a big part.
Yeah.
I like what one of my dear friends said one time. He was a contract guy for Microsoft, and he says, the cheapest job is not always the most inexpensive. And that's a great saying because, basically nobody wants to get gouged.
Well, yeah,
and I
of
think
course
most
not.
people want to pay a fair price, and they know when it's not right. So it's easy nowadays to get some competitive bids by going up to the internet, typing in how much should it cost me to paint my 3,000 square foot house in Redmond, and you can get some parameters. If the guy's not too far out of that either way, you're in good shape.
Yeah.
Well, we had a guest on that gave a link, which is on our website, to a website where you could, he was a general contractor, but if you needed some work
Travis
done.
Spikes, Woodcrafters,
Yeah, one of your guys too.
He's the one that did built the rail that Mike and his crew painted for me.
Wow. Yeah, that's great. Get there, make sure you're in the right ballpark, and then interview the specialist and go from there. I'm a firm believer in that. I think on my website I even have that quote where if you think hiring me is expensive, try hiring an amateur, you know, especially with your loan or especially with, you know, painting your house inside or outside. So I agree with you, man. I'm right there on that. That's what I love about the guests we bring on. They're pros. They're not necessarily going to be the cheapest, but you know what? They're going to do a great job.
But they're also not going to be the most expensive.
No.
Another question that dovetails right into that first question, are your licenses, is do you have references that I can call that are recent? And you should have those. I oftentimes, when submitting a bid, will put down my last 3 jobs, just the names of those. Of course, I ask permission first, but put those down there, and then I would really encourage people to call them. And say, because, okay, how is Mike doing on your house, or how did he do on your house? Find out, because you can brag about yourself all day long, but
it doesn't mean anything.
Where the rubber meets the road is what are other people saying? It's like
and that's why I mean, so I don't know how many clients of mine you've done, but all I have to do is say I've used him.
Yeah,
he's my guy. He's gonna do a good job for you, and you know that you're never gonna. Well, not that you would anyway, but you're never gonna screw over a client of mine anyways. But especially since I give you a lot of business. So you want to keep me happy. I want to keep you happy. I want my clients to be treated well. And it's that symbiotic relationship that works so well.
Well, much like when you recommend, home buyers. When you meet a home buyer,
exactly. It's the same
you
exact
recommend them
thing.
over to me. They don't go out and browbeat me and rape shop me to death. They know they're getting a good deal, but they know professionally we're going to take great care of them. I got to ask you, Mike, are you on Yelp?
I have apparently 2 unsolicited comments on Yelp that are very good, because the Yelp people keep calling me and ask me to sign up. I had one client just write a beautiful report on us, and I haven't done it yet. I haven't signed up for Yelp yet, but I have a couple of people that
I see on Thumbtack and some of the other
Thumbtack
websites.
Is a referral company, much like Angie's List that I'm on, and we're in fact we were selected this year as some of the I don't know how many people they got this award, but we got an award for top contractor in 2015. Now there may be several others, but I do have that badge on my website now.
Cool, nice.
Speaking of which, that's an important thing to find out too. Are you licensed, bond, insured? Do you have references? Do you have a website where I can check out some of your work?
Exactly.
That's really important
Tends
too.
to help.
Well, and a lot of people do pull up everyone's website, or at least I mean, they're going to do a Google search of some sort.
There's a certain amount of effort that goes into that.
Yeah. Good. So we got some great questions coming up here after the break for Mike. So stay tuned. Seattle Real Estate Radio, 1300 AM.
All right. Hey, welcome back to Seattle Real Estate Radio. This is your co-host, Dan Keller. I'm here with Christian Nossum. I just love saying it. I want to say it every day. Every time you give me the cue to bring us back in, you're going to get it, bud.
All right. I'll keep giving it.
Well, and we're here with one of Christian's actual, it's one of the, I don't want to say vendors. That's a loose term. One of your professionals that you work with often.
Yeah.
Your painter.
My painter?
Yeah.
He works. He does mine. Done my house.
Yeah.
A ton of our clients.
Tons.
He's good.
Well, and we got to talk with Mike a bit. I get to throw a couple of curveballs over. Well, you had a script.
Put him on the hot.
You had his script last time, his iPad.
A little bit. Yeah. A little bit.
Well, here's the thing. Both you and I went through. I went through I say we built our house. We basically took a 1929 farmhouse, destroyed it, and rebuilt it from the ground up.
Yeah. There's not much that's the same.
No. Other than a few bones.
Yeah,
and even those we redid. But we did that in 2013. And we had to go through the whole process with contractors and painters. And now that the dust has settled, I got to say, I'm not thrilled with either of the painters. We used one painter for the exterior who came highly recommended locally. And good job. But, as the dust has settled a year or two later, things are, in a couple of areas, it had bubbled. Which custom home, higher end home. I'm not going to lie to you. It's a custom. The siding was very expensive because we use cedar, and same thing with the interior. It was all custom millwork and everything that needed to be painted. And now it's just so as the dust has settled, we can see that there were some corners that may have been cut. And so having a guy like Mike on here is super super valuable. Again, with a lot of our guests, I'm sitting here kicking myself in the tush, going, "Dang it, where was this guy when we were building?" So it sounds like I wish I would have known Mike when we were building.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know him back then either.
Oh,
so.
Okay. So I don't have to beat you.
You don't
up
have to
over
beat
it.
me up.
Okay.
At least I'm going to say that now.
Yeah. Well, in the
I
future.
may have known him.
Yeah.
I don't think I did, though.
Well, again, it's another reason why we have the show. You and
Exactly.
we've lived and learned, maybe the hard way, maybe the right way.
Well, and that's why our clients trust us, because we've been through it. We usually have used the people that we're having on the show, and if not, we've vetted them thoroughly.
Yeah. So. Well, as we went to break, we were talking about Yelp, and I think it's very important seeing what Yelp has done obviously for your business, Christian. You have a glowing review page, Yelp page, and it's because you do things right, you treat your clients right, but you get a lot of business from Yelp, correct? And I think when you do business the way that you and I, and talking to Mike does business, you have nothing to fear on Yelp.
You don't worry about it.
You don't worry about a bad review because you're probably not going to get a bad review. Because of how you conduct yourself. So that's what I was asking. I know Mike says he's got a couple of reviews over there. He hasn't put a ton of emphasis on because with Yelp, you do have to ask your customers to go over there and hey,
but he does, and I Googled him over the break, and there's other websites that are similar to Yelp that are other review sites, and he has tons of reviews on those. So
well, and the biggest endorsement ever is he's sitting right here in studio with us, and that's important. We only bring on pros. So well, hey, I want to thank you again, Mike, for joining us. I want to ask you a couple of things as it relates to interior. Can you give us kind of a rundown on the different types of interior paint and what surfaces they are good for?
Well, surface application or paint application is where you can really separate pros from amateurs, because every surface requires a different kind of paint. For example, for years and years, Benjamin Moore's satin and pervo was the standard of the industry, and specifically the oil-based satin and pervo. Now, technology has caught up, and the industry is doing away with oil-based paints. They've already done away with lead-based paints. So they've caught up to satin and pervo, and they've tried to mimic it, and just about all the companies have. And now they have acrylic millwork paint. Specifically from Sherwin-Williams, it's industrial, pro-industrial, or they're pro-classic. And both of those paints will compete with the highest standard of the industry, which was satin and pervo from Benjamin Moore. So anyway, to answer your question, every surface in the house takes a different kind of paint. And that's where you really need to employ the service of your local painting company. They will tell you a lot. If you're doing it yourself, ask them a lot of questions. Or a really top-flight contractor that already knows what paints to apply. So surface prep is huge. This industry that I'm in, the old quote from Forrest Gump, handsome is as handsome does. Yeah. The effort, the quality of the paint job is a direct result of the effort put into it. Yeah. So surface prep, sanding down or cleaning the walls to make sure there's no hostiles on the wall that can disrupt the quality of the paint being applied is really important. And then the way you apply it is really important. Okay. You want to apply the right amount of paint for optimum coverage, so you don't have any holidays, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. It's very involved, but it's a very long question to a short, a long answer to a short question, but it's a big question.
Kind of the tricks of the trade, also by hiring a pro.
Yeah.
So, I think something else that I wanted to ask you as a pro, I'm not putting you on the spot, whether you are or you are not endorsed by a company or not. What particular type of paint do you recommend? Brand?
I think if you use the upper end, as the article I was reading previously to coming in here says, there's only about a $20 to $30 difference between a gallon of paint on the cheap end and the high end. If you're painting one room, you might as well spend the extra $20 and get the good paint. Yeah. So I would say that any of the local supply outfits from Sherwin-Williams, Parker, Kelly Moore, Benjamin Moore, if you buy their higher end paints, it's going to be fine.
They're higher end. Okay. So don't try to cut corners on paint.
Cheap paint.
Yeah, cheap paint.
What about primer?
Well, a lot of these paints now are self-priming, but the only time you would use a primer is if you needed additional adhesion or if you had coverage problems. You're trying to cover red. Let me give you a little tip. It's free. If you're going to paint something red or paint over red, use a gray primer. Use a gray primer, and it'll cover in one or two coats. If you don't, you're going to be there a long time, and you'll still be able to see through it.
Wow.
Yeah. That's good to know. Yeah, that's a very good tip. We get a lot of clients that, they're buying homes, and they just maybe want to change out the color of their kitchen or maybe a bedroom that the previous owners just went nuts and painted just crazy colors.
Yeah.
Not quite to the point where they want to or can hire you to come in and do everything. So these little tips are great, you know. I've got a question for you as far as maybe a tip. Let's say a home buyer goes in and buys a home, and they had animals or maybe some smokers, and they want to get rid of previous scent. How do you go about, what's the best way to do that? Using a primer?
Usually, a lot of times it's in the floor.
Okay.
So oftentimes you have to tear the floor up. But let's say you don't want to do that. Let's say it's on the wall.
Okay.
There's a product from Sherwin-Williams that slips in my mind right at the second, but it is a very toxic oil-based, lacquer-based product, and you use it, and you can just go in and ask them for it. It's a sealer that actually will seal in smoke and animal smells.
So I've heard of like kills, oil-based kills. Yes? No?
Oh, yeah. That's, I
Does that
think,
work?
That's like the first level. I don't think kills is really going to seal it. There's an actual lacquer-based sealer that they sell. That's really nasty. You got to wear your ventilator and all that.
Yeah.
Spray it on.
And you spray it on.
But it does work.
Okay, it works. So, like if a client's going to pull carpet, get rid of carpet and the pad and put all new flooring or carpet and pad in, that's not a bad idea. Most of the time it's in the floor if it's an animal.
So, what I've heard before, too, is just paint the floor.
Yeah.
Paint underneath the carpet and the pad.
Yep.
I would seal it with that lacquer-based sealer first, then paint it,
Okay. Great.
And then tear it up.
That's good. I mean, that's relevant. Tear it up. That's awesome. So something that we did with one of our rentals, we went in and we did a kitchen makeover. And cabinets are so doggone expensive. We had good cabinets, good hardware. We sanded them down and we painted over them. Is that something that you recommend, that you do? What are your thoughts there?
Well, there's a lot of demand right now for repainting oak cabinets. For some reason, the oak has gone out and the painted cabinets are in. And you got these $10,000 worth of cabinets. So it's, the problem with it is you can usually see, if you're painting an oak cabinet, you can usually see the grain. So there's a product called chalk painting, and that minimizes that grain for you. So what was the question again?
Well, do you recommend? I mean, do you do that, and then are you seeing a lot of that where they're going in, they're sanding them down?
It's not optimum by any means. I mean, you're painting oak cabinets, and they're designed to show off all that wood. Now you're painting them, right? Maybe, but you can do it with the chalk paint. And if you're not too picky about the wood grain, it'll look fine. Another option is to just reface just the cabinet, the cabinet door itself, and have that either painted around the edge or have the oak cabinet with a white face. That's another option.
Got it. What is the most common job right now in a home, kind of a makeover, or maybe a remodel?
Like a flip?
What's the most common thing you're hired for right now?
Most of our work is and it has been for 30 years, is residential repaint. So, the people living in a nice neighborhood and 7 or 8 years goes by and their houses start to look dingy and dirty, and they call us in to clean it and paint it. That's where most of our work. On the inside, it's also aesthetic related. They don't like the looks of it anymore. It's dirty, and they want to repaint it.
So let's say that we wanted to do a full repaint. Do we need to move our furniture out? Do you go into actual homes and spray do the whole entire thing? Tell us about that process.
It varies widely. If they're living in the home, we oftentimes just move it to the center of the room, cover it, put the tarps down around the edges, bag off what's needed, and paint away. So but on the other hand, when you're working with the real estate people, oftentimes it's empty. And that's nice too. But you can work both ways. You can work around it.
Okay, and you do that. You typically spray. If you were to do a full interior, you're spraying the ceilings.
It really, really varies. From room to room. I mean, we use both cut and roll. We call it double cut, double roll to get full coverage. But sometimes spraying makes the best coverage. Now, having said that, we always spray the doors. Unless you're in a commercial situation where they don't want spray, you can use some conditioners in your paint and you can roll them out and they look pretty decent. But on a residential repaint, it's always painted doors.
Okay, quickly, what is the most difficult space to paint in a house?
I think the front door is probably the most important because it's the first thing you see.
It's curb
sometimes
appeal.
You've had other hatchet people in before you, or just somebody has tried to roll it and you got to restore the front door. The front door, and they come in various, they come stained, they come oiled, they come all kinds of different kinds. So the front door offers the biggest challenge. to a homeowner, and they should be sprayed most of the time.
They should be sprayed.
Should be sprayed.
All right. Well, Mike, I appreciate you being on. I want to give out your contact info in case anyone wants to contact you. So Mike Faast, Faast Painting. His website is faastpainting.com. That's FAAST painting.com. His number is 206-818-8272. That's 206-818-8272. And if you do give him a call, tell him that we sent you over from Seattle Real Estate Radio. So stay tuned. We will be back with more info after the break.
You're listening to Seattle Real Estate Radio with your hosts, Christian Nossum and Dan Keller. We'll be right back.